Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our special election edition of NJBIA Live from the State Capitol. I'm Vinny Civitello, Communications Manager for the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. With us today is our very own Frank Robinson. So a few housekeeping matters before we get started. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be emailed to you tomorrow along with the PowerPoint for today's presentation, so be on the lookout for those. I'd also like to draw your attention to the questions tab. Frank would be happy to take all of your questions, so don't hesitate to write them in as they come to you. And I can't stress that enough. Write them in as they come to you, or you may forget what you want to know by the time we hit the Q&A. So now let's get things started. Frank?
Good morning, everyone. This is Frank Robinson, live from the State Capitol. I'm going to be joined a little later by my colleague Mike Wallace, who's our Director of Employment and Labor and Federal Affairs here at NJBIA. Right now, Mike is over under the State Capitol. The Senate is in this morning. The Senate President, Steve Sweeney, called for an election today of who's going to be the next Senate President, and most people are betting that Steve will be reelected as Senate President in the next term, which actually starts on January the 9th. So Mike is over there right now trying to gain some news for us all, and he'll be joining us hopefully in a little bit. But let's start out to talk about the governor's race. Here in New Jersey, we were only one of two elections for governor of the United States this year, as you all probably know from watching the news. In Virginia, Democrats took the state house, and also looks like they're close to taking control of the House of Delegates, which is our version of the General Assembly in Virginia. There's still some outstanding races that they're waiting for there. And the other state, of course, was us, New Jersey. And with Chris Christie term limited, he has just about finished up his second four-year term. We had an open seat for governor here in New Jersey. And the winner was Phil Murphy, of course. Phil has spent about anywhere between, depending upon who you talk to, $20 and $30 million, and was successful on Tuesday. This picture that you see right now, you'll see that Lieutenant Governor Kim Guadagno got 42% of the vote, almost 900,000 votes, and Ambassador Murphy and his running mate Sheila Oliver, former Speaker of the General Assembly, got approximately 1.2 million votes. So it was about 56% to 42 or 43%. On election night, you'll see that's the picture of Phil Murphy on stage at Convention Hall in Asbury Park with his family. That's part of his family there. Phil and his four children and his wife Tammy voted in Middletown about noontime on election day. And it happens that my voting district and Phil Murphy's was one of the same. So my wife and I were actually behind the Murphy family online voting that day. And the young lady you see in this picture is Emma Murphy, Phil's only daughter, who just turned 18, and this was her first chance to vote. So her first chance to vote was in her father's gubernatorial election, and I'm betting that Emma voted for her dad, Phil Murphy. But it was an interesting day in terms of the turnout. Predictions were that it was going to be a little bit lower than normal. The last low record for governor's race in modern times was in 2013, Chris Christie's reelection year, and the turnout was about 40%. This year, it is estimated right now, not all the votes are counted because there's still mail-in ballots to be counted and provisional ballots. I think it's 99 point some odd percent have been counted so far, but the turnout is predicted that it was approximately 35, maybe 36 or 37% turnout. So while that's not good in terms of voter participation, it seems it was good for Mr. Murphy because the turnout seems to have been higher in a lot of the Democratic counties where Ambassador Murphy did pretty well. In places like Hudson County and Essex County, Phil Murphy got approximately 80% of the vote, which is pretty good. In Hudson County, traditionally very, very Democratic county, Murphy won by 62%. Kim Guadagno did very well in a lot of the traditional Republican counties. Phil won, I guess it was about 11 or 12 counties, and Kim won in the others. In her home county, it's also the county where Phil Murphy comes from, Monmouth County. she won that county very well. In Ocean County, she racked up, beat Mr. Murphy by about 40,000 votes. One of the surprising counties, and we're going to talk about this when we get to the legislative races, was Somerset County. Somerset County has always been a pretty safe county for the Republican Party until recent times. The election there, and the latest numbers we have, is that Kim was leading Phil by about 1,500 votes. Normally, that would be a county that the Republicans counted on as solidly in their corner. So as we just sum up on this race, turnout was light. Money did matter in terms of advertising. Phil Murphy outspent Kim Guadagno at least 2. Some people think closer to 3 to 1. And it seemed to have paid off for Governor to be Murphy. To say low turnout, but pretty good percentage for Mr. Murphy. He got about 56% of the vote, and Kim got about 42, 43, which actually, interestingly enough, is close to what everyone had predicted in the polls. Everyone remembers just a year ago yesterday, the presidential election, when all the polls nationwide had Hillary Clinton beating Donald Trump, and the polls were inaccurate all around the nation. Well, this year, a lot of people were skeptical of whether the polling would be on the money because of the way that people feel about the country right now, the way people feel about the state. And the numbers were correct. There seemed to be a bit of a backlash against President Trump, and to some extent, Governor Christie, who, unfortunately for him, has a pretty low favorability in the state of New Jersey right now. But come January 16th, which is inaugural day, we'll have a new governor, Phil Murphy. He has just announced some transition things today, and they're actually maybe doing some more announcements later this afternoon. He's got approximately, he and his team, 2 months to put together a new administration. There are roughly 25 cabinet level positions that need to be filled, including some places that are not technically departments, things like the Office of Homeland Security, the Office of the Secretary of Higher Education. But there are 25 positions there that need to be filled. There are approximately 75 major government agencies that also need to be personed in the course of the next few months. And then there, I mean, for instance, for some people don't realize this, under the Attorney General's office in the Division of Consumer Affairs, there are 50 licensing boards in the state of New Jersey, from everything to plumbers, to doctors, to nurses. Those need to be filled also, both in terms of commissioners and board members and staff. So the Murphy camp has got a busy 2 months ahead of them. As I said before, inaugural day, which will most likely take place here in Trenton, normally does. And he will be preceded by the swearing in of a new legislature. All 120 seats in the General Assembly and the State Senate were up on Tuesday. There were some very, very exciting races, shall we say, and some of them weren't quite as exciting because New Jersey, in the redistricting process, and actually it's called reapportionment here in the state, where every 10 years, based upon the U.S. Census, we draw new districts to be in compliance with both our state and federal constitutions, and it's one person, one vote. And so you'll see here on the map on the screen the 40 districts in the state of New Jersey. Unlike many states, New Jersey has a district, District 1, green at the bottom there, takes in portions of Cumberland and Cape May County. And the state senator, one state senator for the district, so there's 40 members of the state senate in New Jersey, and then there's 80 members of the General Assembly. So you have one senator and 2 members of the General Assembly run in the exact same districts. And so this year, as I say, 120 seats were up. It was interesting in that we had among the largest retirement of members of the legislature in modern times. And we're going to see 8 new faces in the, 8 or 9, excuse me, 9 new faces in the General Assembly. And we're going to see 5 new faces in the state Senate. So let's go, we'll do this kind of quickly, but I wanted to go through all 40 districts for everyone, and we'll spend more time on some of the more exciting races and spend a little less on some of the ones that were somewhat predictable for the day. So we're going to first is District 1, Senator Jeff Van Drew down in Cape May in Cumberland County was reelected, as you'll see, with a pretty hefty margin. He got 65% of the vote. His running mates were the incumbents, Assemblyman Bob Andrzejak and Bruce Land, also won pretty handily down there. That whole area of the state used to be considered pretty safe for the Republicans, but in the last 10 to 20 years, those numbers have changed, demographics have changed, and of course the districts did change under the reapportionment process. One of the most interesting things down there is that day after election, it was announced that the longtime Congressman Frank LoBiondo, who served for about 25 years in the Congress of the United States, announced that he is a little tired of the contentiousness in Washington, that he would not run for re-election. Caught a lot of people by surprise, and the front runner at the moment in some people's eyes for the Democratic nomination would be Senator Jeff Van Drew. He's very well known down there. You see, he's a pretty good vote getter in that area. The district is about, the congressional district is about twice as big, actually almost 3 times as big as the legislative district is, but Jeff Van Drew is a known commodity down there. Another name has been mentioned who wants to run for that congressional seat would be Bill Hughes Jr. Congressman William Hughes Sr. was the longtime Democratic congressman down there until Frank LoBiondo went to Congress many years ago. And in 2014, Bill Jr. ran against LoBiondo, and it said that he has some interest in trying the seat again. So we'll be keeping an eye on that for you, our members, for next year. In District 2, this was a pickup for the Republican Party in the state Senate. The longtime state senator, great guy, Jim Whalen, passed away this over the summertime very suddenly. He had decided not to run for re-election anyway, but we send condolences to everybody down there. Jim Whalen was a great guy who we had a good relationship with here in the business community. But he was replaced in vacancy by Colin Bell, freeholder down in Atlantic County. And the Democrats wanted to hold on to that seat, but Chris Brown, who is the current assemblyman in that district, ran for state senate. You'll see that he won with 54% of the vote. Now, Chris Brown gave up his assembly seat in order to run for the Senate, and so there was one open seat there. Vince Mazzio was the current Democratic assemblyman, and he kept his seat. But his running mate, John Armato, also won in that district, and so now that's a pickup of 1 seat in that district for the Democrats in the General Assembly, and it's a pickup for the Republicans for 1 seat in the state Senate. And just as a note, I see a question here from someone. The column on your far right that has the percentages, you will see that it's, let's go to Mazzio and Armento, it's 28% and 26%. Well, how can they win with only that? Remember, everybody votes for 2 members of the assembly, so you basically double everybody's number, and roughly, and that's their percentage of victory. You see the raw numbers there. District 3, home of our Senate President, Steve Sweeney. Estimated by many to be the most expensive race this year in the history of the state legislature. Somewhere when the final numbers come in, about $15 million spent on that race. Most of the money on the Republican side came from the New Jersey Education Association, which had issues with Senator Sweeney going back many years over his work on propping up the state pension plan, and the teachers union was very upset with him, so they dumped about $5-6 million in there. But as you can see, Senator Sweeney won that race pretty handily with 59, probably closer to 60% of the vote, and his 2 running mates, longtime Assemblyman John Bersicelli and relatively newcomer Adam Talafaro also won handily in that district. District 4, this is one of those races where Senator Fred Madden, who is the longtime chairman of the Senate Labor Committee, looks like he's going to get close to 100% of the vote because he didn't have a running mate. We haven't seen any write-in candidates at this point in time, but probably about the biggest percentage, along with another senator who ran uncontested up in District 19. His two running mates, Paul Moriarty and Assemblywoman Gabby Musquiera, who, by the way, worked with me in the General Assembly many years ago. They also won very handily in their district. Moving on to District 5, which is in, let me get my clicker here. District 5, which is centered in Camden County. Senator Nilsa Cruz Perez. It used to be in the General Assembly and just recently came back to the State Senate, won with very, very healthy margins along with Pat Jones and Assemblyman Arthur Barkley. District 6 is also in Camden County. Senator Beach won very handily. You'll see there almost 70% of the vote, along with his running mates, Assemblyman Lou Greenwald, who is the majority leader in the General Assembly, and Pam Lampett, both won very handily. And just as a footnote, at this point in time, looking at all the numbers statewide, Lou Greenwald got the largest number of raw votes running for an assembly race and is over 41,000 votes. Congratulations to Lou. District 7 is where we also have a change. Longtime Senator Diane Allen, decided not to run for re-election this year, and the Democrats nominated Troy Singleton, who is currently a Democratic Assemblyman, to be their candidate, and then you'll see John Brown was the Republican candidate. Very, very significant victory for Troy Singleton. That flips a Republican Senate seat to the Democratic side. He also ran with longtime Assemblyman Herb Conaway, who's chairman of the Health Committee in the General Assembly, and with newcomer Carol Murphy, who was running for the vacated seat of Troy Singleton. So that is now a solid Democratic district, some pretty impressive numbers there. And so it's a pickup for the Democrats in the Senate and a new face in the General Assembly in Carol Murphy. District 8 was a shocker to lots of people. The incumbent Donna Diago won her race, but it was a lot closer than many people had predicted. That's usually been a very solid Republican district. Mr. Murphy did pretty well there. And Joe Hallworth, Assemblyman just for a couple of years, he prevailed also. And there was a gentleman named Ryan Peters was running for an open seat. Assemblywoman Maria Rodriguez-Gregg had decided not to run for re-election, and so the Republicans put up Ryan Peters. And you'll see on the right-hand side that it's everybody's got 25%, but there is a difference of a couple of hundred votes between the high vote getter on the Democratic side and Mr. Peters. And so we're not sure. There's some talk about there being a recheck or a recount in that district, and we're waiting to find out. Moving along, we go to District 9, 9 and 10 in Ocean County, solid Republican districts. Not much drama there. The incumbents of both both houses, Republicans and in the Senate, Chris Connors and Jim Holzoffel, and their assembly running mates, Brian Rumpf, Diane Gove, and Dave Wolf, longtime assemblyman there, and Greg McGuckin, all won pretty handily there in Ocean County. District 11 was another upset on election night. I'm sure most of you read that probably the second most expensive race in the state this year was the Senate race between longtime incumbent Jen Beck and her Democratic challenger, Vin Gopal. Jen had been around Trenton for a long time. She was in the General Assembly before going to the Senate. Vin Gopal had run for the Assembly a number of years ago and was the former chairman of the Democratic Party in Monmouth County until he gave that up about a year ago to run for Senate. And you'll see he won fairly significantly. That district has been traditionally Republican for many, many years. It's in the center of Monmouth County and represents a lot of the shore towns from Long Branch and Asbury Park are in that district, and Neptune. And Vin Gopal will now come as the first Democratic senator from Monmouth County in quite some time. And his two running mates, Joanne Downey and Eric Hoteling, won in a surprise election 2 years ago in an upset in that district, which gave Democrats the hope that they could take some seats. And so Eric and Joanne will be returning to Trenton and representing the district, and it was one of the 4 split districts in the state that was represented by Republicans and Democrats. It'll now go completely into the Democratic column. District 12, which is in a big district geographically, is in Middlesex County, Monmouth County, Ocean County, Burlington County. Everything stayed the same there. Sam Thompson got reelected with a wide margin, and Republican senator, along with his running mates, Ron Dancer from Ocean County and Rob Clifton from Monmouth County. So they'll be returning in January. Our next will go up to, wait, I think we skipped one. District 13, Monmouth County. Longtime Senator, former Assemblyman Joe Carrillos decided not to run for re-election this year. The Republican candidate was Declan O'Scanlan, who is currently the budget officer in the General Assembly for the Republican Party. And he decided to run for the Senate. He ran against Sean Burns, local attorney in Monmouth County, who had been a town committeeman in Middletown, largest town in the district and largest town in Monmouth County. He ran, Declan O'Scanlan ran with Amy Hanlon, who has been a Republican Assemblywoman for quite some time, and a newcomer. Since Declan was giving up his assembly seat to run for the Senate, the Republicans nominated Serena DeMasso. Serena is currently a freeholder in Monmouth County. She is from Homedale, which is a pretty solid Republican town up there. And so she will be the new assemblywoman when the legislature comes back in next year. District 14, longtime Assemblywoman and Senator Linda Greenstein won pretty handily. That was notable race because her running mate, Ms. Shermer, had been endorsed by Florida Senator Marco Rubio. They happen to be personal friends, and Marco Rubio raised some money for her and appeared in some commercials, but Linda was able to prevail. And we send out our condolences to Linda. Her husband, Mike Greenstein, who I had the pleasure of knowing for a long, long time, for over 20 years, passed away suddenly just a few weeks ago. And our condolences to Linda and her son, Evan, and we wish them all the best. Her two assembly running mates have been there for a while. Wayne D'Angelo, who's the chairman of the Telecommunications and Utilities Committee, and Dan Benson from Hamilton Township, both won pretty handily in their district, and they'll be back. District 15, which is centered here in the city of Trenton, Shirley Turner won with a substantial margin, along with her two running mates, Rika Ciora and Elizabeth Muio. District 16 was another one of those districts where people really were focused in this year. Longtime State Senator Kip Bateman was the head of the GOP ticket. And in the assembly, we had Andrew Zwicker, who did an upset victory against former Assemblywoman Donna Simon 2 years ago, was on the ballot with his running mate Roy Freeman. And to the surprise of many people, both Assemblyman Zwicker and Roy Freeman were defeated Donna Simon, and her running mate was Mark Calaguire, a popular freeholder in Somerset County. And he was filling a vacant position that was left by Jack Chitterelli, who was the assemblyman of a number of terms, who chose not to run for the General Assembly this year. Jack Chitterelli, as most of you remember, ran in the Republican primary for governor against Kim Guadagno, and he was not able to prevail, and he had to make a choice between running governor for assemblyman and that's why that seat's open. So that is one net pickup there for the Democrats. Surprise to many people. And so Roy Freeman will be joining Andrew Zwicker back here in Trenton on January the 9th. District 17, we're going to move to next. Not much of a nail biter there. That is longtime Senator Bob Smith, chairman of the Environment Committee, won incredibly substantially, along with Joe Egan, who is chairman of the Assembly Labor Committee, and they will be rejoined by Joe Danielson, who won his race just a couple of years ago, and they will be coming back to Trenton. In District 18, no surprises there. Pat Dignan, who served in the Assembly for many years before going to the Senate last term, along with his running mates Nancy Pinkin and Rob Karabinchik, will be coming back. That district is centered for the most part in Middlesex County. District 19, you'll see Joe Vitale. He's the other senator who basically got almost 100% of the vote, we guess, because he did not have a Republican opponent. That's a district that's made up of Perth Amboy and Edison and Woodbridge. And Joe will be joined again by Craig Coughlin, who's been in the legislature for many years, and by a newcomer, Yvonne Lopez from the city of Perth Amboy. Yvonne is taking the seat of Assemblyman John Wisniewski, who will be retiring in beginning of January for the next term. John had given up his seat or gave up running for re-election to his seat to the General Assembly in order to run in the Democratic primary for governor. And John had been the longtime chairman of the Transportation Committee, was first elected to the General Assembly in 1995, one of the longest serving members, and he will be missed in town. Was considered one of the big experts on transportation issues and other issues in the state. District 20, we have a solid Democratic district that is going to get a new senator, Joe Cryan. Joe Cryan's currently the sheriff in Union County. Joe is a former member of the General Assembly, had been the majority leader in the Assembly, and he is coming back. He's taking the Senate seat of longtime Assemblyman / Senator Ray Lesniak. Ray Lesniak is one of the longest serving, if not the longest serving, members of the state Senate. He had also chosen to run for governor in this past June's primary, and he did not prevail, so he'll be retiring after decades in the General Assembly. And newly elected Senator Joe Cryan will be joined by Assemblywoman Annette Quijano and Assemblyman Jamel Holly, who also handily won their re-elections. If we move on to District 21, this was a little bit of a nail biter for some folks in the Assembly races. In the Senate, Tom Kean Jr., who is the leader of the Republicans in the state Senate, won by over 6,000 votes, but it was a lot closer, and my numbers aren't lining up there, everyone, I apologize, by Republican leader John Bramnick and Assemblywoman Nancy Munoz. It was a lot closer race than a lot of people thought it might be. Notably in that district, one of the traditionally good Republican towns and home to Senator Kean and to Assembly Leader Bramnick, Westfield, in first time in I'm not exactly sure how long, a Democrat is the mayor there, and the Democrats also picked up 4 seats on the city council. Big surprise for a lot of people. District 22, a solid Democratic district, easily winning re-election is Senator Nick Scutari, and his running mates, Jim Kennedy and longtime Assemblyman Jerry Green, also won very handily. District 23, solid Republican district up in the Hunterdon County and some of Warren and Somerset. Senator Mike Doherty got approximately 60% of the vote, along with his running mates, John DeMeo of Hackettstown and longtime Assemblyman Eric Peterson. They'll be coming back. District 24 up in Sussex County, Senator Steve Oraho faced some challenges from the far right in his party because Senator Oraho was one of the main sponsors of the tax reform package of this past year that raised the gasoline tax to fund the Transportation Trust Fund, but also is phasing out the estate tax in New Jersey and taxes on retirement income, package that BIA supported. Senator Oraho won very handily, both in his primary and in his general election. He'll be rejoined by Assemblyman Parker Space, who's been there for a few terms, and they're joined by a new Assemblyman, someone who's very someone who is very well liked by the business community. He is Harold Worths. Hal Worths was the former commissioner for many years under Chris Christie of the Department of Labor and Workforce Development. We had the pleasure of working with Hal when he was here and look forward to him coming back to Trenton as the new Assemblyman from District 24. District 25, Morris County, a little closer than a lot of people expected. Republicans normally do very well, and Senator Tony Bucco Sr. will be coming back. You'll see he got 52% of the vote. He will be rejoined by Michael Patrick Carroll, longtime Assemblyman up there, and Anthony Bucco Jr., who is one of the top leaders for the Republicans in the General Assembly. But their election, my columns are a little messed up there too, my apologies, was much closer than people thought. Demographics in that district have changed. Mr. Murphy did a little better than people thought up there, so he may have had some coattails, but the Republicans do hold on to that district. 26, a little stronger for the Republicans in Morris County. Senator Pinocchio will be coming back. I think it's for his fourth term. And Assemblyman Jay Weber, who serves on the Labor Committee, and Assemblywoman Betty Lou DeCroach will be coming back also. District 27, former Senate President and former Governor Dick Cody won handily in his district, along with his running mates, John McKeon and Mila Jacey. John is currently chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the Assembly, and Mila Jacey is a chairwoman of the Higher Ed Committee. We work closely with both of them and congratulate them on their return. Senator Ron Rice, we believe, is the highest vote getter in terms of percentage in a contested race this year. Senator Rice, longtime friend of the business community, likes to tell everybody that he's a pro-business Democrat, got 96% of the vote. He will be joined again by Ralph Caputo and longtime Assemblyman and Assemblywoman Cleopatra Tucker from Newark. They will be back with us in January. Next district, District 29, centered in the city of Newark. Senator Teresa Ruiz got a large percentage in her reelection. She is chairwoman of the Education Committee, very, very important position in the state. And she is rejoined by Elena Pinter-Marin, who won reelection, and then a new face on the ballot, Shanique Spike, is taking the seat of Lonnie Watson, a freeholder, former freeholder in Essex County, who had briefly taken that seat, was sitting in that seat of former Assemblywoman Grace Spencer, who was appointed to be a judge this past year by Chris Christie. And in District 30, which doesn't follow in order on the map, ladies and gentlemen, because District 30 you would think would be up in North Jersey, and it's actually in the center part of the state. Long story why it's numbered that, but it's centered in Ocean County and Southern Monmouth County. Longtime Republican Senator Bob Singer got 60% of the vote. Sean Kane, in redistricting, used to be a senator. Now he's an assemblyman in that district, lives in Wall Township. And he will be joined by a new assemblyman, Ed Thompson, who was just sworn in a few weeks ago. And he was filling a vacancy by longtime Assemblyman Dave Reibel, who resigned in order to become the new director of the Alcohol and Beverage and Control Commission in the state of New Jersey. And he's replaced by Ned Thompson, who's a former mayor of Wall Township. So he is in Trenton now, but he'll be coming for his own full term starting in January. District 31 is up in Hudson County, Jersey City, and the city of Bayonne. Longtime Senator Sandra Cunningham will be coming back with strong numbers, along with her running mates Angela McKnight, who's a first-term Assemblywoman, as is Nicholas Chiaravolati from Bayonne. Nicholas used to work for me, and I worked with Nicholas for many, many years. He worked in the General Assembly. He was the Chief of Staff in Bayonne. Done a lot of things. He was the state director for Senator Menendez, and Nicholas will be back next year. District 32, longtime Senator Nick Sacco has been in this legislature for 25 years, I guess. One of the highest vote getters. He also was one of the few mayors who was still in the legislature. He was grandfathered in when they changed that law that you could only have one seat. Nick, longtime popular mayor of North Bergen. He is coming back to Trenton with his running mates, Vin Prieto, who is currently the Speaker of the General Assembly. He's from Secaucus, and they'll be rejoined by Angela Jimenez, who has been in there for a couple of terms now. We're going to move on quickly to District 33, also Hudson County, Senator Brian Stack. You see the impressive numbers that Brian put up on Election Day. He also happens to be the mayor of Union City, and he is one of those grandfathered mayors / senators, and he is going to be rejoined by his running mates Annette Chaparro and Raj Maherkey, who is from Jersey City. Both of them had also very good numbers. District 34, interesting district. This is in Essex County and one town in Passaic. Senator Nia Gill, very popular senator there. She was a former Assemblywoman. She will be coming back, and her running mates were Tommy Giblin, a longtime labor leader in the state, and Sheila Oliver. Now, a lot of you know that Sheila Oliver is going to be our next lieutenant governor. She won very handily along with Phil Murphy on Election Day, but she was also by law allowed to run for her assembly seat. So she will be resigning from that seat sometime between now and January the 9th. And she will be replaced by the Democratic County Committee up in those two counties, Essex and Passaic, and we're not sure who that will be. And then there'll be a special election next year for that seat. District 35, we only have a few more to go, ladies and gentlemen. Nellie Poe, former member of the Assembly, now been in the Senate, was one of the first Hispanics in the General Assembly, and I believe the first Hispanic woman ever elected to the state Senate. She will be rejoined by Benji Wimberly, a Democrat from Patterson in Passaic County, and also by Shavonda Sumter. They both won their districts very handily. District 36, Senator Paul Sarlo is the chairman of the powerful Senate Budget and Appropriations Committee. First, he was in the Assembly. He's been in the Senate for a number of years now, and he's going to be joined again by his running mates, Gary Scheer, who is the budget chair in the General Assembly currently, and Marlene Caridi, who's chairwoman of the Assembly Education Committee, and the two of them will be back next year. We move to District 37, Senate Majority Leader Loretta Weinberg, one with impressive numbers, along with her two running mates, Valerie Vanieri Huddle and Gordon Johnson. They'll be back for the next term. District 38, there was some nail biting there. The Republicans felt that they had a chance of defeating longtime Democratic Senator Bob Gordon, who, by the way, is the chairman of the new manufacturing caucus in the state legislature. The Business and Industry Association has been working with the Senate President and the Assembly Speaker to establish that caucus, which did come to fruition over the summertime, and we're very happy to be working with Senator Gordon and the other members of that committee in order to focus on manufacturing issues in the state. He's going to be rejoined by Assemblyman Joe Lagana and Tim Eustace, who also won pretty significantly in their district, and their incumbency helped them, I believe. District 2039 is a district that the Democrats in the Assembly had hoped to pick up a seat. They spent some significant money there. I think you can tell by the results that there was a bit of slippage for the Republicans in that district, but longtime Senator Jerry Cardinale, who first came to the General Assembly in 1979 and was elected to the state Senate in 1981, one of the longest serving senators in the state, did prevail in that race by about 3,000 or 4,000 votes, and his running mates Holly Schepisi and Robert Auth were also reelected. Last but not least, we have a district where there's a total new change in faces. The senator from that district, Kevin O'Toole, had retired this past year and is now chairman of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. And his running mates, also his former running mates, are retired to become judges. So now we have Kristen Corrado, who was the clerk in Passaic County, is now, she was sworn in to fill that vacancy just a few weeks ago also, and she will be coming into her own full term in January, along with her running mates Kevin Rooney and Christopher DePhillips. So that's our rundown. I probably took a little longer than some people would have liked. I want to basically close with what all this is going to mean to the business community during the lame duck session, and also with the new legislature and new governor coming in January. During lame duck, as most of you do know, is a time when there is going to be a transition. And lame duck really gets exciting when there's a change of power. Now, we are having a change of power in that Democrat is taking over the front office. Mr. Murphy is going to be governor as of January the 16th, and Chris Christie will be ending his 8 years as governor. But the Democrats still control the legislature pretty handily. As I said earlier, we have 9 new faces in the General Assembly and 5 new faces in the state Senate. But what we also have is a net gain for the Democrats. The Democrats are going to go from 52 to 54 majority. The Republicans in the House are going from 28 to 26. So there's a net gain of 2 for the Democrats in the General Assembly. And in the Senate, there is going to be a net pickup of 1. The Democrats are going to go from 24 to 25, and Republicans are going from 16 to 18, to 15. And so you see the balance of power in the legislature is not going to be that much different. And so during a lame duck, we don't think that there's going to be a lot discussed. We really don't know at this point in time what the Democrats and Governor Christie could agree on in the next 2 months. Normally the month of November is pretty quiet in terms of legislative activity. A lot of big conventions going on in the state. A lot of the members of the legislature want to take a little break because they've been campaigning very hard for the last year. But the State League of Municipalities is having their convention. The New Jersey Education Association are also having their convention down in Atlantic City. Then we, of course, have Thanksgiving coming up. So there's usually not too much legislative activity in November, usually. Picks up a little bit in December, but then also we have all the holidays in December. And so the really busy time is usually the first week in January, as the old legislature goes out and the new legislature comes in. And while the balance of power is not going to change, as you see, we have a lot of new faces. And so we'll see what happens that first week in November. January. And then the really fun time comes after the new legislature is sworn in and the new governor takes office in the second week in January. Some of the things that you've been reading in the paper, issues that we have been following for years. The Senate President said today that his first order of business in the new legislature is going to be putting up the millionaires tax. Something that the Business and Industry Association has been opposed to for many, many years. This is not just taxing the rich, this is taxing small business in the state of New Jersey. So many of our members, of our 20,000 members here at BIA, are small businesses. A lot of the people, in fact, file their business taxes through their personal income taxes, which you can do here in New Jersey. And so that someone may look like they're filing millions of dollars worth of profit, and it's not. We have very, very few deductions on the personal income tax, especially when it comes to business, although we have improved that over the years with cooperation with the governor and the Assembly and Senate. There's still lots of people in the small business community are going to be hit by that increase. And what's currently been proposed, and we haven't seen the latest legislation, and there have been many different versions of the in quotes millionaire's tax over the last 15 years. Sometimes it has been truly on all income over $1 million. Sometimes it has been income over $500,000. And so at some points in time, it was the half a millionaire's tax. At one point in time, it was much lower than that. It was the quarter of a millionaire's tax. The one being discussed right now by Senator Sweeney is increasing the income tax for any income over $1 million. Currently, the top rate is 8.9, almost 9%. This would raise any income over $1 million. The tax would be, what's being discussed right now, is 10.75%, which would be the highest or one of the highest rates in the nation. And we think that's bad for New Jersey's economy. We all, I mean, the people, whether it's companies or whether it's individuals that have that kind of income, really are the people that create the jobs in the state of New Jersey. And there would be a much higher rate than any of our surrounding states. And one of the 4 pillars that we always talk about here at NJBIA is affordability and competitiveness with not North Carolina or Florida or California, but competing with those states that are around us, New York, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Delaware, and would just keep us in that highest in the nation tax bracket. So we will be working on that on behalf of our members. Other issues that are talked about that are going to be worked on pretty quickly, we're told, is fully funding the school formula. That is an issue that is near and dear to the Business and Industry Association, because one of our other pillars, of course, is that we need the right kind of workforce training and workforce development here in New Jersey, and that begins with a good education. What our concern is that the millionaire's tax money would be dedicated to education, but once again, that would hurt a lot of the small businesses in the state, and so we'll be engaged in that discussion also. Legalization of marijuana has been talked a lot in the papers over the course of the last year. Governor-elect Murphy has said he is in favor of legalizing marijuana. Lieutenant Governor Guadagno was opposed to that. BIA hasn't taken a position on the issue. We're concerned about workplace issues in regards to legalization of marijuana, so we'll be following that very closely. It is estimated that in the first year of legalized marijuana, approximately $50 or $60 million would be raised upon the legalized product. Ultimately, there are some estimates as high as $300 million a year in taxes collected on that. That is all still to be determined, and we'll be keeping a close eye on that issue. A number of other things have been talked about. I mean, the number one issue for the new legislature and for the governor-elect will be the budget. It's always the biggest piece of legislation in the state. It's the blueprint on programs for the state of New Jersey. State revenue that supports the state budget that we are currently in, that will last until June 30th of 2018, is approximately $35 billion. But the state budget is much higher than that. New Jersey, while we don't get our fair share out of Washington, gets about $15 billion a year, roughly, give or take a few billion, in federal funding. So our state budget is closer, it's a little over $50 billion. And that all has to be appropriated and administered, and that's the big job of the Murphy administration coming in. Got to pick all those cabinet offers that we talked about earlier. Got to have a treasurer who puts together a budget. The new governor will address the legislature in late February or early March with his budget message. That is usually the kickoff document for any administration regarding what their policies will be. We're concerned about issues such as the minimum wage. Both the Senate President and the Assembly Speaker and the new governor have said that they want to raise the minimum wage. That has really profound effect upon state of New Jersey. Business and Industry Association has said for many years that we can't jump from $8 and I believe it's 68 cents an hour up to $15 an hour immediately, because that would really hurt business. But in the end, it would really hurt the people that it's designed to help. There would be unintended consequences. Many of our members that do pay hourly wages, and many of them who pay way above the current state minimum wage, which is higher than the federal minimum wage by over $1, have said that they're probably going to have to cut people's hours, or they're going to have to lay people off, because they're not going to have the revenue to pay people at that rate, at $15 an hour, in the products that they currently sell, whether they're in retail, whether they're in services. They're just not going to be able to afford it. And we have many people in this state that are stuck in low paying jobs, and we understand that. And the reason that they're stuck in those jobs is because they don't have the right kind of education or training. And so we are going to keep a very close eye on that issue. We know that the Senate President in the past has talked about phasing in the any increase in minimum wage over a number of years, and not do it in a short period of time. Give the economy a chance to deal with it, but also too, there's certain industries or age groups that could be carved out, in quotes. I'm very concerned about the agricultural community in New Jersey. We're concerned about the tourism industry, the retail, restaurants, the hospitality. I mean, tourism is a $40 billion business in New Jersey, and would take a very hit with a dramatic increase in minimum wage. Too much, too fast would be a bad thing for New Jersey's economy. And Governor-elect Murphy said that job number one for him on day one is to figure out how we can strengthen New Jersey's economy, and we'll be looking forward to working with the new governor and the new legislature on that issue. With that, I think I'm going to end. I've been gabbing here for about 45 minutes plus. I hope I haven't bored anyone. I'm a gabby Irishman, I guess. But now we'll see if we have any questions that I haven't answered. Vin Civitella, do we have any questions, Vin?
There were 3. You actually answered 2 of them without even realizing that they came. So anyway, I'm going to give people a chance to write in any questions they have before we get to the Q&A. While I'm doing that, I'm going to stall time and let you know about the Handouts tab. We used to get a lot of questions about how do people download the slides. They're right there in your Handouts tab on your GoToWebinar panel. Just open that up. If you don't feel like downloading them now, then you'll be able to get them later when we email them to you tomorrow, along with the recording of today's presentation. So be on the lookout for those. Ask questions. Don't be shy. You're going to get a survey when this thing is over asking you how you like the webinar. And whenever someone says something like, oh, I wish he touched on X, I always ask myself why they didn't just ask the question. You've got a great expert here in Frank, probably the most knowledgeable on this subject of anyone I've ever met. So please take advantage of it. He'd be happy to take your questions. We'll keep this going as long as they come in. But in the meantime, we have our first question from Stephen, who asks, what is the status of leadership election in the Democratic caucus?
Well, it's going on in the state Senate as we speak, and it may have finished. That's my partner, Mike Wallace, who I mentioned at the beginning of our webinar, is over in the State House right now gaining some intelligence for us. The rumor is that Senator Sweeney was going to be reelected by his caucus today for another term as Senate President. I'm not going to make any assumptions. We have worked very well with Senator Sweeney, and we wish him luck. And if he is reelected, we look forward to working with him. There's lots of intrigue also going on with the Assembly leadership. As many of you know, Assemblyman Craig Coughlin from Middlesex County, District 19, had announced many months ago that he was going to run for Speaker against the current one, Vinnie Prieto from Hudson County. And as far as I know, they are not meeting today. Traditionally, for the last 15 years or so, both houses who were going to have the majority in the next term would normally come in on the Thursday after Election Day. That actually started back, probably in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. But there had been no election day for leadership in the Assembly announced as of this morning. We know that a lot of supporters of Assemblyman Coughlin were calling for that election to be held today. We have some indication that it's going to be on Monday right now. And there are all kinds of rumors flying around, and quite frankly, I don't want to be part of that rumor mill because I happen to be very supportive of both Speaker Prieto and Assemblyman Coughlin, in that they are both veterans who been in Trenton for, I think they were elected the same year, about 15 years ago, who have been very open to working with the business community. And contrary to popular belief, the Democrats are not anti-business. Sometimes they don't agree with us on issues, and we, in quotes, fight them on things, but it's always in a respectful way. And we've always found working with Assemblyman Coughlin and working with Speaker Prieto to be very fruitful for us. And as I said, both gentlemen have always had open doors for us. So whatever happens in the Assembly caucus will happen, and you can read it in the funny papers.
Okay, actually both Lee and Connor asked, any idea on the direction of economic incentives? Can the governor end the programs, or does that take legislative action? Many companies are concerned and need to plan.
That's legislative action for the most part. The whole Economic Opportunity Act that was done a couple of years ago, and then the amended version that was done, I guess it was last year, beginning of the following year, the preceding year, in that they changed a lot of the old programs and consolidated them into the ERG program and the GROW program administered by EDA. One of the big criticisms of both those, and they've both been very good economic development tools in the state, but one of the criticisms has been that we don't spend enough time and, quite frankly, enough money on in-state small businesses that want to thrive. And the other problem is that those programs are geared towards specific geographic areas, like urban areas for the most part, and they happen to be around redevelopment of the older sections of the state and also of areas around train stations, i.e. the transit villages. And there is a lot of talk in the Democratic Party and among the Republican Party too, that we need to expand those programs. There are some that believe, some groups that are Democratic groups that believe we've spent too much money on big corporations expanding in the state, or to entice corporations to come to New Jersey with economic incentives. But those have created jobs. And one thing that some people seem not to recognize is that all those the vast majority of those economic development programs through ERG and GROW are designed to create jobs. And that if they do not create the jobs that are promised, they don't get the tax incentives. Those are have to be proven worthy by the number of jobs that are created. In some industries in the state, such as advanced manufacturing, there are companies that want to expand their footprint and expand their output in New Jersey, but they're going to do that by automation. There are lots of robotics starting to move into the state, and they actually can create, those companies can create economic output for our state, but they won't be doing it by creating direct jobs in their businesses. There'll be other jobs such as logistics and transportation created. We are a transportation hub. Governor-elect Murphy has said that he wants to make moving New Jersey forward in a transportation sense is one of his priorities. We've got a lot of work to do at New Jersey Transit. We've got the Gateway Tunnel that needs to be built. We have a bus terminal in the Port Authority's center in New York City needs to be redone, and a lot of projects regarding freight lines in the state, highway repair. We did raise the gasoline tax to have a stable source of funding for Transportation Trust Fund, but that money's not going to last forever. So long answer to your short question, but we believe that the new administration and the new legislature will be dedicated to reviewing our economic growth programs and keep them in place, and we will certainly be advocating very strongly for that from here at NJBIA.
Excellent. So we realize it's 12. We're going to keep going as long as the questions come in, but feel free to go to lunch or stay along with us. If you have to go, we're going to send the recording of the thing out to you tomorrow anyway, so you won't miss a thing, I promise. Next up is Andrew and Emil, who both asked essentially questions relating to how will the federal tax proposals impact New Jersey's tax proposals?
Well, first of all, we don't know what the final tax plan is going to be out of Congress. Lots of changes coming. If anybody, I actually stayed up very late last night watching some of the House Ways and Means Committee discussion, we'll loosely call it, over what should be in that tax plan or not. Lots of Congress people from both New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, California, of both parties are very concerned about the SALT deductions on the state and local taxes. Every day it seems to change. I think we're going to, and in the Senate, really, even the state U.S. Senate has not put out their plan yet. Too early to tell. New Jersey is being one of the highest tax states, both technically on the federal level and on the state level, would be hurt by the elimination of some of the deductions that are being talked about, and that's been, in the papers quite a bit. There is some speculation that based upon whatever the final version of the federal bill is that people here in the state will take a look. Like, for instance, there's been talk about lowering the corporate tax rate from 35% to 20%, but some talk now about that 20% could not go into effect immediately, that perhaps there would be a phase-in from 35 to 30 to 25 to 20. No one knows at this point in time. But the concern is that if the federal tax rate comes down, that there might be a move among certain segments of New Jersey's political population of wanting to raise the corporate tax here in New Jersey. Now, last few years, we have not been collecting as much under the corporate tax in New Jersey. That's been an uptick since the economy has upticked, but it would be incredibly bad for our companies that if they did get some kind of a break on the very high federal level, to have it raised here in New Jersey. And I'm not suggesting that should be raised, and I don't want to give anybody an idea that they should put in a bill to do that, but it's something that we are concerned about and we'll keep a close eye. But really a little too early to tell about the full impact on Jersey until we see the final bill that may or may not come out of Congress.
Very cool. Connor asks, any indications on potential leadership changes at EDA?
At EDA, there have been a few names rumored, but quite frankly, there's names rumored for the 4,000 positions that need to be filled by the new Murphy administration. And I'm not going to, I think that there will be changes there. The people that have currently hold the jobs over at EDA have been a very, very good nonpartisan group of people who have worked very closely with the business community, and by most measures, if not all, have done a very good job. It'll be up to the new governor and his team to make decisions on that. And quite frankly, they haven't asked for my opinion yet. And so I don't want to speculate on what changes might happen.
Okay. Joseph asks, will we have carve-outs on the minimum wage for seasonal workers and miners? Sweeney has indicated he would be open to such carve-outs.
I think that all has to be, I don't think that there's been any discussions that have been public yet with Governor-elect Murphy on what he sees. There are certain groups in the state that don't want any carve-outs whatsoever, that everybody be treated the same. Senator Sweeney has been on the record in the past, and he has been very concerned about agricultural workers in his district who do a great, wonderful job, but they're low-skilled jobs. And to the farmers, especially in South Jersey, Salem County, Cumberland County, part of Gloucester County, and Cape May County is where huge amounts of produce. New Jersey's Garden State, I think, gets its name from that section of the state. It's where tomatoes for years were grown for Campbell soup. There's a great company down there called Seabrook Farms that is one of the largest growers and packers of frozen vegetables in the world. And they have a lot of migrant workers that work down there, all legally, but that if the farmers have to start paying people $15 for working in the field when they're currently paying $9 or $10 an hour, it's going to have an effect not just on those companies, but on the consumers. It's going to raise prices of vegetables. And lots of different commodities, the prices will have to go up in order for the companies to still survive and create those jobs. As I mentioned earlier, there's talk about how do we deal with the tourism industry. A lot of young people that work along the Jersey Shore on the boardwalks and the arcade games and in the restaurants, and they work there, many, many hours during the summertime. But they're doing it to help pay their college tuition. They're doing to maybe buy their first car when they're in high school, and immediately paying them $15 an hour is going to have a very, very negative effect upon tourism in New Jersey that creates a lot of jobs and B, a lot of money for our economy. And what's in age, I did myself when I was in high school and late grammar school in terms of jobs after school and on the weekends, like most of us did. And, are we going to pay 14, 15, and 16-year-old young people $15 an hour to start with very low-skilled, needed, but low-skilled jobs? So, BIA, as I said, we're going to be part of the discussion, and we will be listening to our constituents, the 20,000 members, on how any of these proposals will impact them.
Fred would like to know if you know when the list of upcoming committee meetings will be made public.
Don't know. Traditionally, that comes out next week. They wait for the leadership elections to be over and the give and take and back and forth of that. They're looking right now at all the different schedules of not only the conventions that I mentioned earlier, but of their own members. I said a lot of members like to go away and debrief after their long election year with their families. A lot of people end up going to Disney World. And so I think we'll see agendas as early as next week.
Joseph would like to know if the whole Sweeney versus NJEA fight will have consequences on specific legislative issues, or if it's just more of a personal fight.
I think it will have consequences in terms of things like the health care for not only teachers, but also of all public workers. That's been a hotly contested item for a long time. People just think that Democrats wanted to do giveaways for public employees, and that is not true. And I think that maybe, just maybe, the fact that the NJEA spent so much money against Senator Sweeney may have an impact, but I'm not sure. One of the bits of tension during the campaign was the fact that NJEA went hard after Senator Sweeney, and he responded in kind, and that Governor-elect Ambassador Murphy had the full-throated support of the NJEA during this past campaign for governor. and that there are many, many issues that do need to be resolved regarding school funding and teachers' salaries and the park tests for students. Do we fully fund districts? The issue of fully funding pre-K programs around the state are going to be on the agenda, and so hopefully everybody will be able to come together, because in the end, it's all about educating our children and our grandchildren.
Here's an interesting one. Donald would like to know if there's any word on the street regarding cabinet members.
There are rumors around, and I don't really want to repeat any of those rumors. I probably heard of people who there is interest in, or who are interested in being cabinet officers. Let's say we said there's about 25 or so cabinet level positions. I've heard about 2,500 different names. So a little too early to tell. Transition is starting up in earnest, and there'll be lots of different leaks, but I don't have any names to give today. But whoever's asking this question, if you'd like your name recommended, I'd be happy to do
that. John would like to know if you anticipate the governor will have any lame duck priorities. Will legislators want to pursue a salary increase for state workers, judges, and legislators?
Well, some people have speculated that Governor Christie would like an additional legacy item or two. Current governor has been working very, very hard on the opioid crisis, not only here in New Jersey, but around the country. As you all know, he's been heading up President Trump's commission on dealing with this, and an issue incredibly important to the state of New Jersey. We have had way too many people overdose in New Jersey. New Jersey was one of the first states that focused attention of state government and passed some legislation to help people that have the addiction to in this terrible problem. Tough to say. There has been some rumors about perhaps looking at some of government officials' salaries, government workers, both at the executive level and the day-to-day good workers that help run our state government haven't had raises in a long time, because we've had a tough economy that we're still working out of the Great Recession, and so rumors out there, no legislation on that. Could also possibly raise judges' salaries or cabinet salaries or legislative salaries, and I just don't have any information on that. Just scuttlebutt off West State Street here under the Golden Dome.
That's all the questions we have. So I don't know if you know this out there, but Frank Robinson is heavily involved in our ELC program. Any ELCs we should be looking out for further perspective on the election?
Well, ELCs, I know that, like for instance, our Monmouth ELC, which is chaired by my dear friend Fred Brody, is having a meeting tomorrow, and they're actually having a great speaker, a young man who worked for me many years ago in the legislature, who is now the head of the Rebovich Institute of Politics at Rider University. Very, very knowledgeable guy. Dr. Ben Dworkin will be speaking in Asbury Park tomorrow morning. Unfortunately, I will be unable to be at that meeting because I have some meetings here in Trenton, and I have to call Mr. Brody later. I think he's listening now, and give him my apologies that I can't be there tomorrow. But the ELCs, I've been helping to coordinate them here at NJBIA for the last 15 years. They were founded in 1959 by the association to be sort of our local grassroots wing. Most of them, there are 18 of them all around the state. A couple of counties have joint, like Gloucester and Salem County, and they meet periodically with members of the legislature, governor's cabinet, local elected officials, members of Congress, political pundits and experts on all different kinds of issues, ranging from healthcare to the environment and energy. And if you go to the NJBIA.org website, you can find out the schedule of those meetings, and they're all run locally by great people like my friend Fred Brody, who volunteer their time to put together these meetings, usually an hour, hour and a half long for breakfast or lunch. You don't have to become a committee member. You can attend anytime you'd like. It only covers the cost of the meal, whether it's breakfast or lunch, and usually pretty lively discussions. I try to get to many of them around the state every month myself, but if I'm not there, usually one of my colleagues from the government affairs office is there, and I just want to give them a shout out. They do a great job in helping to prep me for these shows, and also the great work they do advocating for our almost 20,000 members. There's first our president, Michelle Sikirka, who's a great voice for the business community. Then there's the head of our government affairs, Melanie Willoughby, who just celebrated her 42nd year right out of grammar school. She started working here in Trenton. And we have Mary Beaumont, who deals with healthcare issues and legal issues for us. Mary, as many people know, is the deputy commissioner over at the Department of Banking and Insurance, and was a counsel in the legislature for many years for the Republicans. We have Sarah Bloom, who is a recognized expert on energy and environmental matters in the state. Andrew Music, one of our newest vice president, heads up our efforts on economic development, taxation, and education issues. He is our budget expert. If you have any questions about the budget, you can always email him. You can find him on the website. We have Mike Wallace, who handles federal issues along with employment and labor issues. And he didn't make it back from the State House, and I don't know whether there's good intrigue that I could have filled. John, I've been stalling a little bit, hoping that Mike would get back. Great guy. He used to be chief of staff for Senator Madden down in Gloucester County. And then our great communications staff, and including my producer here today, Vinny Civitella, does a great job running these shows, not only for the Government Affairs Department, but other webinars here at BIA. Lots of great information for you that you can tune into almost on a weekly basis. And also I want to give a shout out to Steve Wilson, who helped put together, who's our assistant director over in communications, who put together our slideshow today, and his colleague Joanne Degnan, who does a lot of writing for government affairs and does a great job. And last but not least, a shout out to our new director, a relatively new director of communication, Bob Considine, who joins us from the Department of DEP. Does a great job coordinating all our communication efforts with the government affairs advocacy. And we can give you any help on anything. Come to the website, give us a call, send us an email. We're here to help you.
Awesome, and thank you. As Frank mentioned, the ELCs are all over the state. If you want to get directly to the schedule, it's njbia.org/ELC. Well, that looks like about all the questions we have, so it's as good a time as any to bring this to a close. Don't forget, all of you will be receiving a recording of today's webinar and the PowerPoint slides via email. Lastly, when you close out of the webinar, a survey will come up on your screen that we hope you'll fill out so we can understand how to best provide you important information in webinar format. Our next webinar, Federal Taxation and Business Entity Law Aspects of Buying and Selling Businesses, will take place Thursday, November 15th, so you can sign up right on the homepage of our website. So until next time, for Frank Robinson, this is Vinny Civitella thanking you for being with us this morning and wishing you a good day.
One last thing, Vinny, and to everybody out there, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the Lieutenant Governor for her service, and for Governor Christie for the years that they've been in office here. We'll be talking a little bit more about their legacy in the next couple of months. But I personally traveled around the state with the Lieutenant Governor the last 7 years, speaking before different business groups and education facilities. She was very much into job creation, and she was given that task by Governor Christie when she first started as Lieutenant Governor back in 2010. Been a great partner with NJBIA. We thank her for her service and for her support and her friendship, quite frankly. And also want to wish the best to all those legislators who will be leaving in January. Great working with all of you. And we want to congratulate all those that are been reelected or newly elected to the Senate and General Assembly. We will be reaching out to you in the coming weeks and months to let you know the priorities for the business community, and we look forward to working with you. And last but not least, to Governor-elect Murphy and Lieutenant Governor-elect Sheila Oliver. Congratulations to you both, and we look forward to welcome you to Trenton beginning of January. And as the biggest business association, not only in New Jersey, but a nationwide, statewide employer association, we look forward to working with you on the issues that will affect New Jersey's economy. Thank you all very much.